Hello, everybody. It is Saturday, the 28th of June, and I want to talk again about divine knowledge and the problem with it. The problem with divine knowledge. Because if we come to a point now where we say everything is consciousness, we are beings of light, of energy, we are in an interconnected web. If we're really trying to live in that reality, then we really must think about how this works. And just standing there saying, oh, everything is consciousness. I'm surrounded by the consciousness of the Creator. That is not knowledge. But there's a problem. I say that is the first problem with divinely derived knowledge. You are being given the fullness of an answer. Yeah, and just standing there endlessly repeating it is not what you should do with that. You should look into the detailed meaning of it. You need to do the proofs, the steps that lead back to the fullness of that divine knowledge. Many are not doing that, they're just blurting it out. It's like somebody saying, and here's what they do, that is exactly what they do. Say the example of a car, yeah? And let's say people were completely ignorant of what a car is. And then they say, I know car. It is a car, trust me. It's a car. Now, if they had full knowledge, anybody would have full knowledge of a car. They could tell you all the working parts of it and what they do and how they interconnect the engine to everything else, to the wheels, to the lights, to the battery. They would be able to tell you the whole thing. That is knowledge. That is then the true knowledge of the car, how every part of it is working. Now, most of them that would proclaim the great knowledge have not a clue how it works. Yeah? So, and then if you come up to them and say, wow, car, what is that thing in the front? And they say, headlights. Right. How do headlights work? And then they run into difficulty. And then they would either say, well, this is car. It is great. But the headlights are part of the eternal mystery that we just cannot fathom. Yeah, they come out bullshit like that. Or they would come to you and say, well, I know what headlights are and how they work, but I cannot share that knowledge with you because you are just not ready to receive it. That's how it works. Yeah, they've got the knowledge, the fullness of the knowledge, and they haven't got a clue what they're talking about. We have not got a clue what we're talking about. So let's say that is a knowledge that we're awakening to. Everything is consciousness, then we must go into the details. How does that actually work? We are receivers. We receive knowledge, we give out knowledge. How does that work? And before we haven't worked that out, we do not know. No. We do not have the fullness of the knowledge what it means that everything is consciousness. And as they're just going around blurting it out, endlessly repeating the words until they wear out, that is not the way. Now, but I believe it is true. And I believe it is actually happening. It has always been happening. Yeah? I believe that in times before, people were in that knowledge, they lived in that knowledge, they worked that knowledge. Yeah? Again, they knew the details. They knew details of it that they could work. What the also scientific community would say is in olden days was a superstition or worship of gods grown out of superstition, I don't think so. That was a reality that they lived in and that they worked with, and they knew how to work it. They knew this wider reality of everything is consciousness. We must find that knowledge again, because that's the knowledge we have lost. It was in this world before, I'm sure of that. Now, so the problem with this whole idea, the details of it that we must work out. Well, one of the things I said in the video before, I just want to bring a few examples here. And again, I'm not saying what I'm saying is truth. I just have, like everybody else, I've got tons of puzzle pieces and I'm trying to make them into a coherent picture. Yeah? I've got bits and pieces of narratives, I'm trying to make them into a story that actually makes sense. And I would say the more of the pieces you can incorporate into the story, the closer you will be to the truth. That's something else I want to talk about in the end, because there are those at the moment that are doing away with puzzle pieces because it doesn't fit their narrative, and that doesn't work. Right, so what I said in my video before, and how I see it. When I said the knowledge goes through us, we are the receivers, and we are that which expresses the knowledge that we were given. And as I said, I was talking about the guy Ramanujan that received, and he believed it came of God. He was a Hindu, so one of the gods. And that it was divine knowledge. And through him it expressed itself in mathematical formulas, in equations. And I was thinking yesterday, what that actually means, it expresses itself through us, is if you were, for instance, if you could take Michelangelo, Mozart, and let's say somebody like Ramanujan, and you put them into one room at the one time and you give them the same download, it would express itself in different ways. In Michelangelo, it might take the expression of a painting. In Mozart, it would have become a piece of music. In Ramanujan, it would have become a mathematical formula. They all would have received the same download, but it would have expressed itself in different ways because it went through them, through their individuality, in which way it expressed itself in different ways. Obviously, they did not live at the same time. They were not in the same place. And again, is there only one source? Or did they not only express knowledge in different ways, but it actually came from different sources, which would make things an awful lot more complicated. So this is things we have to consider. The other thing is, if everything, again, we go back to everything is consciousness. What we read as forms in this world is consciousness. We can see in the forms that not everything is the same. Is that because we are completely oblivious to the truth, or is that a reflection of the truth? Is the solid world a reflection of the truth? And then the higher truth is not everything is the same. As below, so above. Different kinds, levels of consciousness. Now, if we say mineral, vegetative, animal, man, the main difference between them would be the amount to which they are self-conscious. Yeah? And that actually brings up a really big problem. Let's say the rock is the least self-conscious in the plant, and from experiments, we can see that plants have a reaction to their environment. That means there is a level of self-awareness there. Animal even more so, and man, yeah, totally self. So if you can connect to all consciousness, you may be connecting to different levels. And then how much of a self is in the knowledge that you receive, it would make a huge difference. let's say the rock would just give the basic details because there is no self involved. The plant would give something a bit more, from my perspective. The higher you go, the more from my perspective would be there. That would change how you would need to look at the knowledge that you receive. If you come to the highest level, our level, fully self-aware, add knowledge to that, and then the capability of thinking about a future, and out of that come desires, out of that come intentions, and then the knowledge, then you really have to ask about the knowledge you receive. And you have to ask with what intention was that knowledge given. Again, you receive of the rock, I don't think you have to ask that question. There is no intention. But you ask of a God, there most definitely is an intention. Yeah? And the idea that out there they're all fluttering altruistic beings of pure love, forget it. I think the evidence, the stories that are in this world already do not support that theory. Again, base it on something. Don't just flutter around detached from any kind of evidence. The evidence is here, it's in this world, it's in our stories, it's in the architecture of the past. Yeah? And know the fluttering light being of pure altruism and love, no. I don't think that is supported in this world. Again, there is questions you have to ask yourself. You have to go more into the detail of what the meaning of everything is consciousness. What does that actually mean? And only if you have the details do you have the real knowledge of it. The more details you have, the more knowledge you have. And again, those idiots that wear out the words, they have very little knowledge. Now the last point I want to make in this video, and I'm going back to the beginning, that the knowledge, the downloads express themselves through us, and depending on the person, it depends on the person what form the knowledge will take. You can say it like that, what form will it take in this world? Literature, stories, storytellers is another form that it can take. Right, so you have people at the moment that really, I think, go in the path of, again, a Ramanujan before him, where this knowledge expresses itself as math. And you have now, in this world, those that proclaim this world is purely math. The universe is math and nothing else. We have the divine download, we're not questioning it, and we believe what we have received is all. Maybe even out of the thinking that there is only one source, and again, what is being given is the only truth, the only enlightened truth, there can be no other. So everything is math. Everything is logic, everything is math. Of course, they have got a problem. That is the emotions. The emotional knowledge that is clearly in this world, which kind of goes sideways into their logic. It keeps interfering with their logic. It does keep interfering with the logic in us. There's a reason for that. Yeah, it is the knowledge of good and bad. But again, for them, it is an impurity. They say it's an impurity in humans. that they have emotional knowledge. And again, they say it is something we have to overcome to come into the fullness of the knowledge that everything is math. So again, that means that life, as it is at the moment, that obviously entails emotional knowledge, life, that has to change. So it fits their theory. So it fits their knowledge. Life has to change so it fits the knowledge. The knowledge does not fit life, which is obviously more than math. And then, if they could even build a world, build a full reality based only on that, that reality would not be fit for human beings, because we are more than that. And there is, in the book of the Revelation, there is a passage where it says they will create a new world, but that world will be smaller than the one before. And it will be smaller because it doesn't contain all of the knowledge. And again, they are building a bubble where the fullness of reality is like raging around them. And then how long will that bubble stand? Can it stand eternally? I doubt it. I think that is one of the reasons why great empires and great civilizations vanished. Because they died from the lack of knowledge. They didn't have enough. They had not incorporated enough. See, that's another thing we have to think about. What does it mean if the knowledge expresses itself through us, and then one declares his knowledge to be all, and everything has to be according to that knowledge? It is not the fullness of the truth, because none of us is the fullness of all. They're all just puzzle pieces. And then really, predictive programming. Let's go further down that idea. If they really would do that, everything is math. Yeah, everything is just the one thing. And math becomes a religion. I think it's well on its way to being that. I mean, the whole thing, every time it's taking on religious tones already. Yeah, dogmatic. And do we come to a point again then when people point out really the obvious, that they are being burnt down at the stake by the zealots, by the fanatics that will serve the one and only truth? And don't say it cannot happen, because we are going around in circles doing the same thing over and over again. And I mean, why not? You have you could say it's the mistakes of history, or you could say it's the lessons of history. It has worked before. It worked in absolute treat, sadly so, but it did work. So why not do it again, if it works? And if the few that have the knowledge, knowledge is being given to rule over, they can then rule over the plebs that know nothing. If we are at the end of an age, and I say we're only going back to what was before, I think we went through an age of darkness, complete darkness. We went deep into the darkness. Yeah, just keep moving until you see the light. And I would say the light is to go back, because as I said before, if the things get darker and darker, means the light is behind you, you're walking away from it. So I think we're going to make a U-turn, going back to what was before. We're taking a few steps back, which we must. So this knowledge of everything as consciousness is rising again. That knowledge is rising again. And we have to, again, work out the details and what do we do with that knowledge. And just fluttering about, repeating it endlessly is not going to get us anywhere. And yeah, just shoot down those that are questioning it because they're questioning your divine knowledge. Forget it. Anyway, yeah, there's just a few things that we need to think about if we actually go into that age. Yeah, it's not just go there. Know it is truth. And don't know any of the details. It's not going to work. I leave it at that for today. And I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.